Real reform means stronger border security, and we can build on the progress my administration's already made, putting more boots on the southern border than at any time in our history, and reducing illegal crossings to their lowest levels in 40 years. Real reform means establishing a responsible pathway to earned citizenship, a path that includes passing a background check, paying taxes and a meaningful penalty, learning English, and going to the back of the line behind the folks trying to come here legally. And real reform means fixing the legal immigration system to cut waiting periods and attract the highly skilled entrepreneurs and engineers that will help create jobs and grow our economy.
Welcome to Wicked Felina. I'm Felina. Now, as I was telling you in the last video about how filthy this country will be, do you know that San Francisco has feces all over the streets and urine and needles all over the streets? In fact, they tested it and found that it's worse than the diseases you get in a third world country. It's about 6 times worse than a third world country. So that's what you will be. That's the future of this country. In fact, I think there's more room in San Francisco, but you won't be able to move should the world become what the liberal progressives want it to become. And, you know, the liberal progressives, basically, they want all these people to come in because somehow they feel that they were cheated out of their own land, which is absolutely not true. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. It's going to turn into like a Latin dictatorship. It's going to be run by the drug cartels because that's who's basically running south of the border now. And everybody thinks that Fidel Castro and Che Guevara were heroes. Well, in fact, they weren't. Racism is rampant in Cuba. There's a line right down the middle between blacks and whites. And in fact, the Castro brothers, basically, they arrest the black people. The dungeons are full of black people. Dungeons, I say dungeons because they're tortured too. So I remember when Obama went to Cuba and they got off the plane. They're all smiling and clean and shining bright. And they had all their designer clothes on. And then they all went to get ice cream cones. And there were these women called the Women in White that were in the streets protesting, hoping that Obama would help them and hear them. Well, their husbands, and these are the dark-skinned people, their husbands and sons or brothers have been jailed for political wrongthing. And they went out into the streets to protest, hoping Obama would see them. And Obama knows all about them, so that's bullshit. He just didn't know. He knows. Okay, that's bullshit. And of course, Obama took 2 planes there because he always brings his mother-in-law and a bunch of other people. But he always takes 2 planes everywhere he goes. That way he gets, more carbon emissions into the atmosphere as he possibly can. So what they did was Castro's government, the wonderful communist Cuban government, beat them up to a pulp in the streets. And so the women in white were all red with blood. And the Obamas are walking around with their ice cream cones. And then you see him just like a regular American at the baseball game in Cuba, sitting there with Raul Castro, having a good time. He's opened up Cuba. Things are going to be so much better for the people in Cuba. I think not. And you think, he did nothing about Chicago or Baltimore. He, the riots around this country that burned down black cities and pitted whites against blacks and the racism. He did just instead of talking and bringing us together, he met with these people in the White House. He did aggressive. He didn't help black people in America. Black unemployment got worse than it's ever been. Now it's the best that it's ever been under Trump, the KKK Nazi. That's really amazing. So he did nothing to save the lives of the black people or the neighborhoods, the education or the future of those young black children, just to make sure they get school vouchers so they can go to the better schools, better schools, get a better education. But Obama was against school vouchers programs and actually educating the black youth well, so they can maybe become president like him or something else, something better. So why ever? There's so much hate in America now. And remember, all the white people got dragged out of cars and beaten up by black people because the black people said they must have voted for Trump, they're white. And that autistic young man who was beaten up by a black gang in Chicago after Trump got elected. And you notice how Obama did absolutely nothing. He did absolutely nothing to stop this from happening. It's kind of like, hey, it's not my problem. You voted for Trump. You're going to have to pay this price, white people. I know I've really gotten wicked. I've really gotten wicked honest, haven't I? I'm not going to take this bullshit. So you're taking jobs away by bringing in people from south of the border, low-skilled jobs, away from African Americans, any poor, even the white people. There's a whole group there's more white people that live below the poverty line, and people forget the Appalachians. They live in such horrid conditions. They live in a poverty that the people who we think are poor are actually living like kings. And you always attribute the words like Nazism to the Republicans, now the Trump voters, when it's you that always votes in lockstep, even though you're going against, you've basically betrayed the black people. You've betrayed the black community. You've turned the segment of black community. White people, they had this, you claim that white people or some white people have this idea about black people, right? That they can never move out of or become better than what they are, right? And you took a segment of black people, you lied the heck out of it, and you created riots in the streets where they're burning down their own cities and beating people up. And Martin Luther King was basically telling us it's not the color of the skin, but the content of the character, that black people and white people can be equally bad or equally good. But all of the news, you've basically, thanks to Obama, was fueling this fire, and George Soros. George Soros is behind an awful lot. You're giving the world a bad impression about black people. Instead of, oh no, they're going to school, they want to be educated, they're taking care of their children, and they're looking and working towards a better life and a future where they live in peace, where they're not going to get killed or gunned down in the streets. Their home isn't going to be burned down. They're not full of hate and rage. they have a sense of self-respect, which I believe all of them, that's why there's so many gangs, because men who join these gangs are looking for respect. They're looking to be treated, people to look up to them with respect. That's a part of the idea of being in a gang. So that sense has not been beaten out of them, but they needed help, and they needed Obama. He really did, to work with them, to talk to them, and to incentivize them to study and go to college or learn a trade and become something. And so you do have that self-respect. But they didn't. They actually destroyed. He actually turned his back on the Black community, but because before he was running for office, he was totally against illegal immigration because it took jobs away from the Black community. And the Black community didn't need to be hurt any more than it did by this country. And then you vote in a Black president who's actually half African, not African American, who did not grow up with the Black experience, but grew up with his white grandparents. You vote this guy in, not somebody who's like Black on both sides and, is an African American, descendant of slaves. No, so it's no wonder why he doesn't understand what it's like to be Black in America, or to live in poverty, or to live in a neighborhood where there's shooting and gunfire and the bullets go astray and kill innocent young children or any innocent person. He doesn't know what that's like. So he vowed to, and also Hillary and Bill, they all vowed to stop illegal immigration, and Chuck U. Schumer and crazy Pelosi. They all vowed because they wanted to, they wanted to get the Black vote at that time, didn't they? But now they don't care about the Black vote. They don't. They think they have it. Look, the Democrats put in their Black president. So they got the Black vote no matter what they do. And then Obama actually says, he said to an audience of Black people, I will take it as a personal insult if you don't vote for Hillary. Hillary supposedly was going to keep his, policies going, supposedly. She's going to do what she wants to do. So he fought like heck to get her elected.
There's no such thing as a vote that doesn't matter. It all matters. And after we have achieved historic turnout in 2008 and 2012, especially in the African American community, I will consider it a personal insult, an insult to my legacy, if this community lets down its guard and fails to activate itself in this election. You want to give me a good send-off? Go vote!
Imagine a Black person, how that made you feel. How it's like, he's like controlling them, using them, playing on their vulnerabilities. And let the madness begin. It's got a little video on that. And they kind of couldn't believe that he said that. And they're African American, let the madness begin. They're very funny. And they are right on point, spot on. Really like those guys. So he basically did nothing for the Black community. And he turned around and opened up the borders. And now there's 150,000 homeless Americans on the streets of Los Angeles alone. Americans who cannot get the jobs under the table, because if they got the job under the table, the person who owns the company or the farm would be put in jail or fined for paying people a quarter of the wage. So there's no way for these Americans that are out of work to get jobs because the jobs are being given to illegal aliens who are getting a quarter of the pay and getting all the subsidies. That's how they can survive. So, if you were black and you were a roofer in California, you could have a family, a wife, and send 2 children to college. But all those construction jobs, roofing, drywall, all that has been given to the illegal aliens. And so it's put a lot of black people out of work, which Obama promised before he was elected he wasn't going to do. But then he turned his back on the black people and opened up those borders and basically, literally publicized it through the media down in South America and Mexico to come into this country, the borders open, and how to get in and how to get free stuff. So he totally betrayed the black people, didn't he? And the poor people, and the poor Hispanic people of this country, all the poor people. Right now, I'm going to stop, I think. And then I'm going to start my video on the Mexican-American War. So, one little kiss from Felina. Felina really loves you. I really do. And I want the best for everyone out there. As poor as you are, as sick as you are, or even the rich. I want the best for everyone out there. Their idea is crazy, jamming everyone in the world into one little country until it implodes. It's kind of impossible what they're doing. And it's going to cause a lot more climate change, let me tell you, and things that we've never even thought of before. But anyway, one little kiss from Felina.